Okay, so in this tutorial thing, I'm going to explain a little bit more about the core mod system in the Unreal Mod Loader, and I'm also going to go into how to properly set up some blueprint wrappers, what exactly they do, how to utilize other, features and stuff of the core mods, and overall just what they are, how they work, what they do. I know this is something that I haven't explained in depth, and I haven't exactly given a lot of ways for people to understand them right off the bat if you have no prior knowledge. So I'm going to try and cover some of that here. Basically, the main reason behind that is because I kind of wrote the core mod system under the impression that no one would use it but me. And seeing as there's a bigger interest in that now, I thought I would clean up a lot of the code in this update and make sure that I make something that kind of puts people in the right direction. So yeah, to start out with what a core mod is, it's a SDK based DLL mod. It basically allows you to write standard C++ mods, and this can be very useful because it can expose some things that are not native to Blueprint itself. For example, some file management things. So, like if you want to write to a file, read a file, that kind of stuff right from disk, you can't do that natively in Unreal Blueprint. That's not to say that if a game adds those functions in, you can't add them in yourself, but 9 times out of 10, there's no reason for that. But that's just one example. I'm basically just using that, but basically, these can be used for a lot of things. So the core mods themselves, they're, again, just the C++ mod things. You will see that I have a example mod for you set up in the solution. It's just called example mod, and you really don't got to worry about any of the files like this UE4 folder or the sources folder. Basically, this just tells you, hey, once the DLL is injected, you want to create the mod class. You can customize that yourself, but you really only want to deal with this header file and the CPP file. So in the header file, you can customize your mod name. If you're also using this alongside a blueprint mod, you should probably have the mod name be the same name as your pack mod. That way you can do some easy BP linking and stuff like that. You can also put your mod version down, the mod description, the mod authors, and the loader version, which you really don't want to touch that. That's basically just for, all right, let's say you make your mod for version 2.2, and then mod loader version 3.1 comes out or something like that. Well, it's going to give you a little warning when you're booting up that, hey, this mod was made for a different version, may not work, you may want to update it, see what's, going on. So it's just like a little precautionary thing. There's some other virtual functions that you can override. You really don't got to worry about most of these, they're already implemented. But if I go into here, so right here, this initialize mod function, it is only called once right when the DLL is set up and injected. You would basically want to do this to declare stuff like global variables, standard C++ stuff that you want to do. Hooks, which I'm not going to explain what a hook is here. If people are confused and want, a separate video on that, that's fine. But the thing is, hooks are not a Unreal specific thing or a mod loader specific thing. They are something that is a general game reversal and modding method. But basically, if you want to do hooks, you would set them up here. If you want to register blueprint wrapper functions, you'd want to do it here. Basically, anything you want done only once in the beginning, that's fine. You can see there's a little thing here to use the min hook system. And there's a bool here called use menu button. So all example mods, or core mods, my bad, for the Unreal Mod Loader have a default button built into the I'm GUI menu. Now, sometimes you won't need that button, but if you do need that one button for anything, you can uncomment it and then write the code you want on mod button pressed. I only use this when I need to debug stuff because 9 times out of 10 I'm not using that, but if you need it, it's there. There is also a init game state. That is basically a dispatcher function that is hooked into the Unreal Engine init game state function, which will basically kind of, to simplify it, if you don't know how the internals work, it's basically only called every time you transition to a new level or the game state's reset. So basically, every time you go to a new level, it's done. You can put anything you want on that. This is the hook dispatcher for any A actor begin play. So any actor, once its begin play is called, it will call this dispatcher here. This is very useful if you want to modify something on begin play, maybe a player controller or something. You have a lot of access here, basic Unreal stuff. post begin play is a function where if you are using a pack mod alongside your core mod, and the name is the same, it will tell you when the post begin play, which, as I've stated in other videos, that is the function right here that is called later in the call chain, and you really want to write all your code on this. This will tell you when that has been called. This DirectX 11 present, or preset, whatever, basically, you really don't want to touch that unless you know what you're doing with DirectX hooks. You have no reason to ever touch this 9 times out of 10, but it's there for the more advanced people who want to mess around with DirectX hooks and stuff like that. And again, there may be more functions added later on, but that's it for that. I already went over this function. And the draw I'm GUI function is just, that's called every time I'm GUI is updated. So if you want to have like your own menu or widget or something, you would write your I'm GUI code in here. It's, straightforward. I'm not making much stuff about this, but it's basic I'm GUI. It's literally I'm GUI, so that's fine there. So that's basically core mods explained in a nutshell. I'm going to tell you real quick how to go about creating BP wrappers though. Because when you're using a core mod, 9 times out of 10, that's what you're going to want to go for. That's kind of the whole reason that you would use a core mod, at least in collaboration with your pack mod. So the way you would do that is, and I'll show you how to write one, but I have an example right here. So register function. This right here will basically register your BP function into the function array thing, and just make sure that when your function with this name is called, it actually runs this code right here instead. So I will show you the example right here. So I have a blank write to file node in this mod actor. You can put these anywhere, by the way, but I have it just in the mod actor. If I double click it, you can see there's no code in here. It is just a empty function you can create up here. It's the same name as the write to file here, and it has a input, which is a string, a return value, an output value, a boolean and a string, very simple stuff, and there's no code in here. This does nothing on its own. But if we want to add code to run in C++ and make it basically execute shit, what we're going to do is we want to move over to this core mod. And we can see we registered the function, we declared the function, and basically once you declare the function, whenever this is called, it will immediately call this function right here. So the first thing we do is we're going to print to the console something very simple, a write to file thing, just to know that the function's been called. You can actually use the log call, but I didn't for this. But then after that, I have a struct here. Now, this struct, it's a little confusing, but you should be able to get the hang of it. Basically, all of your inputs are going to be in a struct parameter. If you're not new, you shouldn't. If you're new to C++, research what that is, because it is a fairly simple thing to understand. But it basically stores your input parameters in a structure. So as you can see, I only have one right here, and I have it named different here, but don't worry, just name it the same. It doesn't matter for the inputs, but you want to keep it the same. I just made a mistake, so I can quickly change that. But basically, if I had another thing, you would want to add it here. I only have the file name input, so I would only utilize the file name input. As for the outputs, actually, let me backtrack real quick. Then, once you have your structure set up, you want to just call stack, get input params, and you just want to put the parameter as the template type. Then it will return you a little thing with your inputs. Then you can see for the output setting here, so such as the return value and the output string, you would just call the stack again, but you would call set output. You would set the declaration type. This is a string for the output string, and this is a Boolean value for the return value. You just put the name in exactly 1-to-1, and you set the value type. So this should be printing out true. I actually have it converting so it'll print out 1 instead, but that's not important. And I also have it to be printing out whatever string is returned on this output string, which I have K-Boy Yang right here. So all of this code will run, and it will do that. I have it set up. And you can also print out, obviously, the reason you would have inputs is to print them out. I don't have anything set up here to read them, but it would be as simple as just adding something here like, all right, inputs, file name, toString, and then you're printing it out. But we're not going to do that right here. But I have this all set up. I am going to open Undefeated real quick, and I'm going to basically show you how this would be executed. Okay, so as you can see, we're loaded in here. I'm going to press F1, and if I open up the logic mods, this Hello Russell, which is the first button in the mod buttons, if you don't know what mod buttons are, I did make a video about that before, but when the first button is pressed, it'll call the write to file thing, and we should see in the console, we should see a few things done. We should see this printed out, meaning that the function's been called. We should see two print to mod loaders, one that prints out the value gotten from the boolean, and one printing out the return string. So if I shrink this and I press the button, you can see no crashes, no anything. If I go over to the console, write to file, value gotten 1, I converted it to an integer. Boolean true actually equals 1, so that is correct. And the string is K-Boy Gang. It gets outputted directly from the BP via the C++. So that's how you would do that. And I'll show you real quick like how to write your own in case some people are still lost on it. So I'm just going to add a quick test function. I'll just call this test BP function. And I'm going to add 2 inputs. One will be a bool, one will be a integer. I'll say test1, spell that correctly. And then I'll do test2, and I'll also add some output values such as a string, returned value, and I'll maybe add a boolean that says yay, or yeah, question, actually I'll get rid of that question mark. But basically, as you saw, there is no code in here, but you can drag out that function and call it anywhere you'd want. So I'm not going to show this code executing, but just to save time, but I am going to show you how it is set up because I already showed you the execution. But, you know, you have your thing here, but you want to add the code in. So what you would do, you call this thing right here. So let me do some spaces. BP function. You want to put the exact name as your function here. So I will copy this, test BP function, and paste that in here. Then, like a normal function, you want to add your brackets. There you go. Now you have your declaration, but you want to register the function. So you're going to call on initialize mod. You only want to call it on initialize mod. You call register underscore, I spelled that wrong, underscore function, and you want to have the exact same name. Now, any code you put in here, you will be executed when this is called, and I'll show you how to set up the inputs and outputs. So let me do the input. So I'll do struct inputs. So let's check the types we have. We have one integer and one boolean. So I'll do an integer, it's called test1, and a boolean, which is test2. Then we're just going to set that into a type. Inputs, and I'll actually get rid of this. I'll just name this input params just to keep things clean. Then we're just going to call stack get input params input params. And now we could access through here anything we want. I don't recommend trying to set these as they are input things and you should have no reason to set them, but you can get the values. You can modify all the stuff you want for the inputs. Now if you want to modify the outputs, that is very simple as well. You just do stack, then you call set output. You would set the type, so we can see the first one. Actually, it doesn't matter what order you do it in because it's just outputs. But we're just going to do, for the sake of the argument, UE4 F string, because this is a string. Then for the name, we want to put the name exactly as it is. So this is returned value. Then we want to set something. So I'll be like, ya boy winning. Something dumb like that. And that would set that output. Actually, no, it wouldn't. My bad, I forgot. I have to put an L here, because it is a W string. And then for the second thing, which is just yeah, you do the same thing. Stack, set output, bool, yeah, and we'll just do like true. There you go. That right there has you getting the inputs, the outputs, and you can use these to write whatever code you want. You know, if you want a check, like a perfect example would be like if inputs test2, if this was to equal true, then we want to set the output to true. Something like that. You know, you can modify the outputs, and it is very useful because you can now define your functions in C++. So, I hope that this kind of clears up the confusion and stuff with the core mods. The newest update is out by the time you're seeing this, so I would recommend you get that. Unless I put something on the end of the title that says outdated, this is still up to date. And, yeah, that is pretty much it. Once you run this code and everything, it will, in fact, you know, do all the stuff that it said. It will read the inputs, it will set the outputs, and the outputs will do their thing. As you saw in the first one right here, it does in fact work. And if you have any questions, feel free to hop on and join the Discord and ask any questions you have in any of the channels. I or someone else will be happy to help you there. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. And yeah.